Well, hello again, Bill Lesso here. I didn't send Blaine my bio, so Blaine's being nice to me, which is more than I do for him, since I dissed him off. But anyway, I'm retired from Schlumberger and have been consulting in drilling mechanics for about 15 years, all over about 30 different clients across that time frame. And have been dabbling mostly in horizontal wells, wire drill pipe and casing and liner drilling. For those of you that know kind of the stuff that I've been around. I'm currently primarily consulting with Patterson and with Superior on directional drilling and drilling mechanics issues. And those of you have known me as a broken record, I've been talking about tortuosity and the IADD for the last 2 or 3 years. 3 years, my gosh. Jim still puts up with me, which is nice of him to do. And so I'm going to try to, and I thank him for giving me the cleanup position here.
You got it.
So
swing for the fence.
and I'm actually here in person, so that's kind of weird. Anyway, it's a new world we're in. So, and I've been pushing Jim and Blaine and others to, let's take a broader look at directional drilling, and directional drilling is related to tortuosity. And I said too many nasty things to Jim, so he wouldn't let me speak last time, but for some reason he let me speak to this one here. So, but here I am. Anyway, so, you know, tortuosity versus production is kind of where I'm starting, but this is really, you know, what is quality in directional drilling? So, you know, as an instrumentation engineer, you know, from an engineering sense, quality is adherence to specification, you know, which kind of makes sense. What are the specifications in directional drilling? The specifications in most things get to be, you know, what is easy to measure. And of course, any sensor or instrumentation engineer knows the easiest thing to measure is time. So we drill wells as a function of time, as you all know, and we're paid as a function of time. And the thing that we need to do most often is drill wells as fast as possible. So the kind of the question that's been batting around a little bit, you know, is quality in directional drilling fast as possible and rate of penetration? While we in this room would like to say it's not, it's my phone over there, excuse me. You know, in reality it is, because, excuse me, thank you. Anyway, yeah, I'm a function of time too. So, but I think almost everybody, you know, you look at, we're trying to do things so that we can get what we perceive as a better wellbore as fast as possible, because we are still slaves to the measurement of time. And I think we're finding that we kind of need a new normal here, as we do in a lot of different things. And so that's what we've been trying to do with, because let's face it, what we really want is to get paid. And in order for people to get paid, somebody has to make money. And in order for you to make money in the oil industry, you have to make production. So our quality measurement should be related to how much effort we put into well construction such that we get production. Well, right now we're starting, you know, what we do is our quality is a function of time, unfortunately. Okay, we're going to pay attention to lease hard lines. That's also something easy to measure. And then we probably do give some credence to target tolerances. Well, here's a progression that I would suggest that we consider in terms of possibilities with quality. Now, you know, tortuosity is something that, you know, we've talked about, and you know, in my previous discussions I've talked about, there's 19 different ways to measure tortuosity, and I try to go with some of the simplest ones. Really, what we want to acknowledge what's going on with slides. Now, you know, Tim and the superior people are looking at placement in terms of slides. I want to look a bit further and say, you know, does the completion engineer or the people doing a hydraulic fracture know that we have a 10 times higher piece of curvature within a stage where they're putting a perforation and putting a hydraulic fracture? You know, we in this industry have effectively covered it up because we officially do not have to report where there are slides in laterals. Now, I don't know if that has an impact on production, but you know, Urtec just finished virtually, and I, you know, sat on my butt and listened to a bunch of presentations for 3 days, which was interesting. And you know, the people that are designing hydraulic fractures for unconventional wells have a whole bunch of problems that they don't know what's causing them. And some are positional, and some are mechanical and whatnot. But you know, we are dependent on them getting those fractures in the right spot so that they get the production, so the operators make the money, so the service companies can get some money. So that's something we need to look at. Another aspect of quality is in geosteering. Now, you know, the easy way to measure geosteering is, you know, what's the percent in zone? And, you know, this is where I differ from my compatriot, you know, Mr. Ed Stockhausen, you know, where he's telling me that the purple shale is better than the green shale, and I'm looking at the log and trying to figure out what the heck that means. When we were doing sand shale, we could say percentage in zone. And then Ed will wryly look at me and say, well, on this well, you know, the percentage in zone is going to be whatever I'm going to want to make it, because I get to say where the purple shale is and where the green shale is. So geosteering has some problems. Lateral positioning, I think Tim pointed out, and you know, Superior and the other people that are working in this position are showing that, you know, we have positional errors that are in the hundreds of feet. And, you know, we talk about a default fracture being this ellipse that is 600 feet high and 800 feet wide. That's a real good fracture. Those fractures are sometimes 150 or 200 feet high and 200 or 250 feet wide. And if we're introducing a 100-foot error in some of these wells, which we actually are, then we're putting that fracture, that big fracture, in almost completely the wrong place. This error is no longer negligible. It's as big as the fracture, which I've always considered kind of synonymous to a nuclear detonation in terms of wellbore construction. Then the other aspect is depth control. I mean, I'm an old wireline engineer, and you know, I believe in depth control, though I never actually did it correctly in my entire 400 wells that I logged in my, you know, way back before most of you were born. And you know, in a lot of cases, I mean, I'm not mentioning names or something like this, but we have this thing called a pipe tally, which I used to say was pretty bad because it was made by the lowest paid person on the rig, of which I was at one point in time, and I did do pipe tallies, and I know what kind of quality control I put into that, especially in the middle of the night in a rainstorm. But you know, we cannot even see what the pipe tally is, you know, reasonably. I've looked at a few pipe tallies across multiple wells, and I've found pipe tallies that have the pipe in the same order, i.e. somebody has taken the pipe tally from one, cookie cuttered it in there. What the hell does that do to depth control? You know, and these are all things that we in the well construction business are being paid to do correctly. Again, I'm not mentioning any names, but or anything like that. But after,
But you could.
I don't even know if I could. You know, I'm going to hide behind publicly available data. Though, as you know, I can't really do that because pipe tallies are actually considered confidential data. But anyway, between all of these things so far, I don't believe that the center point of a well is reasonably within 100 feet of where we say it is. Okay, probably it is in the heel, but certainly as we get out towards the toe, you know, we're fairly well off. And if you see by some of those wine rack plots, you know, 7-foot station, if those wells are wandering around all over the place, then, you know, what is that doing to the people that are actually designing these hydraulic fractures? Okay, moving away from positional, casing setting. You know, in our world, we're probably trying to set, you know, our deliverable to the rest of the industry is a wellbore in which we can actually set casing. Now, you know, what is you know, how hard do we have to beat up that casing to get it into the tortuous well? I don't want to always go back to tortuosity, but, you know, tortuosity does play a lot into it. You know, what is the health of the casing? You know, a friend of mine is a consultant for some of the proprietary connection manufacturers, and they're getting a better business because casing is breaking a fair bit more. Now, you know, I think that kind of reflects on us in the tortuosity sense. But again, as Jim says, I could name names, but I'm not going to. So, and related to casing is cement zonal isolation. You know, there's a certain dog leg of which the wellbore is going to be, or the casing is going to be up against the wellbore, and the cement would be best described as a crescent, which in my book is not zonal isolation. Now, I've given up long ago on a decent cement bond log being run in these wells, but you know, we do have torque and drag techniques and touch point techniques that can give us an indication of the quality of the casing set. Quality of the casing set is important because we do need that zonal isolation, because if there's a slide down there, it's reasonable to say that the casing is up against the wall, and if there's a perforation there and there's not a hydraulic seal when we hit it with 5,000 or more PSI, you know, where is that frac going to go? Is it going to travel along the pipe and find another perforation, you know, another cluster, and then we're going to add to another fracture? I mean, you know, where are these fractures going? Bottom line is, you know, we are making wells so that we can do these hydraulic fractures and ultimately lead towards production. So I'm asking you all to consider, you know, we cannot have a quality of well construction that leads to production as kind of what we've been attempting to do with this IADD series, until we have a way to kind of measure how we can relate what we do to actual production. And I'm proposing that these as possible steps with some of the problems that currently exist within our own industry. And let's have a dialogue. I mean, you all out there, you know, in this room and all over the world, probably have some ideas, and I hope this is stimulating some thought as to how we can actually work towards drilling wells again towards production. Now, this is a crappy slide for us, you know, and we're acting as if we're still in conventional well construction. Conventional well construction, you know, 2/3 of the effort or cost, if you will, were associated with drilling, and 1/3 of it was associated with completion, and most of that is actual casing cost. These were offshore wells, of which I spent most of my time. In unconventional wells, it's a different sort of mix. It's kind of a 7-part cocktail. And you know, the percentages may be a little bit different, though a lot of people have said this is what it really is. You know, one part is drilling, one part is that kind of old completion part in terms of casing and cementation, and another part now is 10,000 feet of perforating and the plugs that go along with the hydraulic fracturing operation, and then 4 parts are the hydraulic fracturing. You know, we're the tail wagging the dog right now. You know, that blue drilling part is way the heck smaller. And most of the people I talk to consider in terms of well construction costs, the drilling is between 15 and 20%. And that's where I'm getting this 7-part cocktail from the different people I'm talking to. Now, okay, casing is casing. And, you know, it's iron and it's basically CapEx. Now, there are some variations in cementing, but not a lot. There certainly are, you know, turbulizing and reciprocating casing and things like that. Perforating is almost CapEx also. It's a certain shape charge that you're going to use. Plugs are pretty much CapEx. Now, there's a lot involved in hydraulic fracturing, as you might imagine. You know, each individual stage, you know, probably has a 10-level recipe of different things that are done. I've been to several frac jobs, and they are downright amazing industrial processes. And you know what? If you measured how much goes into a hydraulic fracture and how much goes into a drilling by the tonnage of iron on location, then the hydraulic fracture is about 4 times what the drilling operation is. But the bottom line is that the hydraulic fracturing and the drilling operation are the 2 areas that, you know, have the most variables, the things that can change. Question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So plug and, oh gosh.
Plug and perf?
Plug and perf, and tends to just, you know, consider, okay, say, let's just blow a bunch of holes, get as much exposure as we possibly can to whatever formation we drilled, and then you saw kind of a little bit of a sledgehammer approach on more proppant, more sand, more water, right? Do you think that if higher quality wellbores were drilled in zone, there would be some inclination to go to more of a what the open hole packers and open hole completions where you've got sleeves?
Engineered approach.
A little bit more of an engineered.
Don't say that phrase.
I know. But I'm curious, right? Is there a possibility to affect that and then give the completion side the opportunity to maybe at least look into the sales pitch of the sleeves or the, you know, those
Sure.
that touted a little bit more of the scalpel type approach?
As opposed to a
Look,
nuclear device.
yeah, you know.
Well, we're relying on nuclear detonation. Okay.
Does that make sense though?
Allison, it
could
makes
that have a
perfect.
ripple effect into
You
completions?
know,
Or?
engineered fracs and taking surveys every 30 feet are 2 things that I'm probably not going to see in my lifetime. I would much rather see an engineered frac and the option to go to all of the different neat things that can go on in fracturing that you're talking about. So yes, but you know, we have, and like Urtec is mostly frac and completion and production people. You know, there's a 15 to 70% representation of drilling in Urtec. Our industry looks like that thing right there, and we're acting like, you know, we're conventional blue. But you know, they don't know squat about drilling, you know, and we don't know squat about fracking. You do, you know, you work in this a bit more than we do. So that dialogue has got to take place, and they can't make a good case for engineered fracs without really understanding what the hell we've done to this wellbore, because they're going to get confounding results, if you will, because we're hiding slides to group everything all in that group. So these 2 areas, the blue drilling and the hydraulic fracturing, which is the stuff that can change, those 2 groups have got to talk and have got to work together. And if we're going to be able to see if they're going to be able to see any kind of result from going to engineered fracs. The people that I talk to, the frac geos, drill to frac, all the different companies that would like to do engineered fracs and novel approaches in fracturing, you know, they're probably not seeing what they want to see because, you know, we're handing them the dog's dinner. Does that make sense to anybody? Does it, you know?
Yeah,
The regurgitated dogs.
yeah, it's just that we could have such a huge, on the drilling side, such a huge impact on cost.
I mean,
cost savings in completion.
Yeah.
How many directional drilling people have actually been into operator meetings where there were completion people represented? You know, and I mean, how many directional drilling people have talked to operators and completion engineers and said to them, do you know I hid a 12 degree per 100-foot dog leg in the middle of that stage? Now I've actually done that. And there, you know, the result was almost, there's no such thing as a 12 degree dog leg. You know, that's kind of where we're at right now. So anyway, moving on a little bit, but we're getting a better feel for it. So how do we get to these measurements? And you know, we have the other point I wanted to make, and then I'll shut up and sit down, is that, you know, we have a lot of proprietary data and we have public data. And the cool thing about the public data is that it's getting more public and easily accessible. You know, these are the state organizations of the major states in the United States, and Canada is also nicely organized, and I'm not going into Canada right now, that actually keep track of mostly surveys, our data basically. Again, 90-foot stations, so they don't get to see anything like a slide. And you know, this is what we can use as a basis to discuss what's going on, because for all intents and purposes, this organization represents the directional drilling of unconventional wells. This organization represents drilling in the United States for large wells, if you will. There's another organization that's up there on the right that I want to point to, and that's an organization called Frac Focus, you know, which is an environmental organization. And it's up there because I think it's the best organized organization that keeps track of part of what we do. In fact, you know, it's looking for pollution and spills basically, but they have records on every frac that's ever been done, you know, since 2000 basically, at least 2005. And if you know, how we keep track of what ducks are basically comes from Frac Focus, and they're totally free. They give their data to everybody. And yet, you know, we in the actual well construction business, you know, we have these state agencies, but we haven't really, we haven't coordinated those. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever tried to find out where the Texas Railroad Commission hides surveys. And I will, you know, and they have the best organization of all the surveys, certifications, PDF files, and everything. And I would challenge you to find where it is in the Railroad Commission. Okay, it took me weeks to find where it is, and it's huge. You know, it's a huge place, and I'm not going to say where it is. If you hunt for it, and if you tell me where it is, and there's one word that I'm hunting for that says where you found it, you know, send me an email, and then I know you're kind of looking at this stuff. But the bottom line is you know, we ought to get organized as much as Frac Focus and understand what the nature of our industry actually is. Okay, I'm going to skip over this stuff because you've seen this. These are gun barrels. So this is tortuosity. Okay, and this is basic large survey tortuosity, which is one of the 19 kinds, which most people accept. It's basically, it's not averaging dogleg severity, but it's integrating dogleg severity into a curvature and then dividing it by length. So it's degrees per 100 foot. All it does is account for surveys being at non-uniform depths, which I don't really have to because damn near every well has surveys at 93 feet. But the bottom line is that in the lateral section, average tortuosity is about 1.7 degrees per 100 foot. And the accepted theory that I go with from Pioneer, which says keep tortuosity below 2 degrees per 100 foot. Remember, that's average tortuosity, that's not the slides. But since there's no such thing as a 10-degree dogleg in unconventional drilling, then, you know, the 2 degrees per 100 foot thing works. And, you know, so we got a nice, you know, log normal distribution on tortuosity, so it's a good metric. This is a lease, you know, and the other thing to remember is wells are not drilled in isolation. So those are the 600 by 800 foot idealized fracs in a relatively large lease. And there are several large leases like this. And again, the fractures are probably not that large. But, and this is again, all public data. And the point is our wells are not drilled in isolation. And while it's not an anti-collision sort of thing, keeping track as to where we place and how those wells wiggle around. And, you know, and I don't know if I trust, you know, the minor radius distance, you know, a couple hundred feet on these wells. But this is kind of our unit of constructions. Wells are not really done in isolation. We should look at them in packs. The point I want to make with this, and you know, this is what they look like, is that another public thing that all the state agencies have, and it's way easier to find than surveys, is something called the 24-hour test. This basically says what that well would produce in terms of oil, water, and gas. And this particular well makes 1,700 barrels of oil in a 24-hour period. It's the standard 24-hour test, which is actually a relatively good well. And it's a way that we can actually look at production. This is a plot of that multiple well lease that I just showed you in terms of the large scale tortuosity on the x-axis in the lateral section, the horizontal tortuosity, as compared to the 24-hour production in barrels per million gallons of frac. So that's a weird unit. But remember, if we're going to think in terms of a metric that goes from well construction, directional drilling, all the way through production, we basically have to go through the frac. So we have to account for what's going on in the frac. So the first time I did this with oil, and I got those blue dots on it. And okay, I kind of saw something there. And then I decided to put all the fluids together, oil, water, and gas with an accepted gas conversion to liquid. And those are the brown dots. And lo and behold, you know, there is a correlation between, if you will, this normalized production and tortuosity, i.e. the lower the tortuosity, you know, if it's down to about 1 degree per 100 foot, which is kind of where that correlation line comes through, you know, we're getting, you know, 600 barrels per million pounds of, million gallons of frac. Of course, you want to do this in liquid or sand, you can do it either way. So frac focus manages, they like liquids, you know, they're looking for pollutions. You know, they want to, I'm not going to say that.
Something that spills.
Something that spills, yeah, exactly. And, but anyway, and the correlation coefficient on this sucker is like 0.4 something or other, which in the real world is damn good. So, okay, in an isolated incidence in a large well where there's statistical significance, we can actually get a correlation between tortuosity and production. Okay, so out there somewhere is, you know, we're here in well construction and they're sitting over there doing fractures, and on the other side of the fractures are the people that are actually managing production. Okay, somehow our industry has got to get the two major groups that can impact this thing to talk about stuff. I'm showing you this plot as a desperation of hope, basically. We can, in isolated incidences, get to that, but we need to get a dialogue, you know, so that we can talk with the frac people. We need to get our stuff together so we can talk to the frac people. Again, that list that I showed you, let's figure out what's important in well construction. You know, let's, I mean, a lot of what we've been talking about here is keeping out of trouble, okay? Because we do have to keep out of trouble. And, you know, we do have to not pack off wells, but, you know, we are blasting these wells down to the point where there's really not a pack off problem as much. So let's address how we can get to talk to the frac people in an intelligent manner. So going back to the public data, you know, if you look at all the states, these are the 27 basins, bigger basins that are, and the number of wells that are greater than 10,000 feet, that's what's hiding underneath there in the basins that we've had since about 2015. Now, what I've proposed to Jim and the IADD is that as a starting point, what's easy to measure, let's take a look at these basins, and here I'm debuting something that I promised to you all for quite a while. You know, it's a simple metric. I don't know what it means. It's a starting point. But of our population of 60,000 wells in this, which is the Anadarko, you know, these are the wells with the longest laterals, okay? So I'm proposing that we have something of a, like we've done with the nose plot for extended reach wells, but come on, when was the last high ratio extended reach or lateral well drilled? I mean, the last one in the database is 2015, isn't it? Okay, all of these wells are newer than 2015. This is the real world. So the Anadarko, the Barnett, the Eaglebine, you know, which is the northern Eagleford, if you will, and Woodbine or so. And if you notice, we have the MWD companies in there. I'll stop on this one because the Eagleford, you know, the top two wells were done by MS Directional, but you know, I didn't point that out.
Not that that's
It's also done by that near bankrupt company. I better skip that slide. Okay, the Haynesville, you know, okay. Permian Central Basin, which is a smaller section, but the real meat is Permian Delaware, Texas Permian Delaware, as opposed to the New Mexico Delaware, if you will. And you know, there's some pretty long wells here. And then the Permian Midland. There are Pro Ds on top of the heap on that one. So what I propose is that we add this to the IADD site. Of course, what I'd like to do, and I'm working towards, is doing the same sort of thing in terms of tortuosity, something that we can measure. But you know, I'm throwing this out to stimulate thought. You know, let's get organized in terms of our technical analytics so that we can talk intelligently with the fracture people, because we have got to change the nature of our business. And I think Jim said it best, that you know, that the directional drilling aspect of it is probably, well, the directional drilling aspect of it has the most variability. You know, we control a lot of what happens on these wells, and the frac people control a lot of what happens on those. Those are the two big piles where there's a lot of stuff going on that's disjointed. And this is broader picture, okay? I'm not saying that all of the safety aspects of drilling safely and not getting stuck, God forbid having blowouts and things of that nature, that's all still on us, and that's all on drilling engineers and the service companies associated with us. You know, that's our responsibility. But we also have a responsibility to deliver a good technical product, you know, to the people that are actually going to finish off this stuff and ultimately get to where the cash money is, the spigot basically